She said the only way to earn the Queen's trust was to sleep with her. In a galaxy torn by war, one man will discover that loyalty comes with a price. The legend begins now. The moon of Vorenus vanished in a single flash of light. From orbit, it looked almost beautiful, a sphere of white fire blooming silently against the black. But for Commander Riker Blackwell, watching from the viewport of his patrol cruiser, it was the kind of beauty that left ashes in the throat. The weapon that did this, the stellar aegis, as the ancient records called it, had been dormant for millennia. Now someone had awakened a fragment of it. The Krell Dominion was already on the move. If they found the full weapon before the Coalition did, entire civilizations would burn. Riker's orders were simple: find it first or die trying. He didn't mind dying. What he minded was failing. Hours later, the war-scarred soldier sat in a dimly lit tavern on the outskirts of Meridia, the largest megacity on Thalos. Neon lights bled through the rain-soaked window panes, washing his table in streaks of green and violet. Alien voices mingled with the clinking of glass and the hum of plasma generators. The air was thick with heat spice and something faintly metallic, a scent that reminded him he was far from home. A human face was a rarity here. Thalos belonged to the Theasians, tall, emerald-skinned humanoids with luminous hair and eyes that seemed to see through lies. To them, humans were newcomers, brave, reckless, and far too curious for their own good. That suited Riker just fine. He kept to himself, nursing a glass of amber liquid that tasted like scorched honey and acid. The music, some alien rhythm with a syncopated pulse, filled the silence in his head. He was waiting. When the seat across from him shifted, he didn't look up. "You're late," he muttered. Fashionably so came a melodic, accented voice that could have melted steel. He glanced up and met the green eyes of Lyria Voss. The Theasian intelligence officer had a presence that could silence a room. Her bright skin seemed to glow faintly under the low lights, the hue deepening where her armor hugged her curves. Silver white hair cascaded down one shoulder in a loose braid, and her gaze was sharp enough to cut through excuses. "You picked quite the place," she said, scanning the chaotic bar with amusement. "Best kind of anonymity," Riker replied, setting his glass down. "Everyone's too busy breaking the law to notice a human and a spy meeting in plain sight." Her lips curved slightly. "I see the rumors about you weren't exaggerated. That I drink too much. That you're reckless. Reckless gets results." "Or dead," she countered softly, then leaned in, her voice lowering. The situation's changed. He tensed immediately. Changed how? The Queen knows. That single phrase was enough to drain the warmth from his drink. "Knows what exactly?" "Our attempt to access the ancient archives." He ran a hand through his short chestnut hair, exhaling slowly. "So we're blown." "Not entirely," Lyria said, her tone calm but her eyes flickering. "Queen Alara has agreed to grant access under conditions." Riker frowned. "Conditions?" "She wants to meet you personally." "That's stopped to hear you go, me? Why me?" "She's curious about humans," Lyria said, choosing her words carefully. "You're still a novelty here, a dangerous one." And she hesitated. She believes that only through direct communion can she judge your loyalty. He leaned back in his chair, narrowing his eyes. "Communion sounds like religious nonsense." "To Theasians," Lyria said softly, "rituals are politics. And you, Commander, are about to become the center of one." Riker stared at her, searching her expression for irony. There was none. Only the faint glint of concern, or was it guilt? "When does Her Majesty wish to meet?" Lyria finished her drink, the glass clicking softly against the table. "Now she's expecting us." Outside, Meridia was alive with movement. Air cars streaked through the misty night like comets, their contrails reflecting off wet metal streets. The air smelled of ozone and alien flowers, beautiful but artificial. They walked quickly, their boots echoing against the slick pavement. The silence between them was heavy. Riker could feel her tension like static in the air. "You're quiet," he said as they boarded a sleek hover transport. "So are you. I'm thinking about how many ways this can go wrong." "Then you're thinking correctly," she replied, flashing a rare smile that didn't reach her eyes. The transport lifted, slicing through the fog toward the heart of the city. Riker watched Lyria's reflection in the window. 3 months of working together had taught him she was brilliant, disciplined, and loyal, but also secretive. There was always something she wasn't saying, a truth hiding behind her perfect composure. "Tell me something," he said suddenly. "Do you trust your queen?" Lyria turned to face him, her expression unreadable. It's not a question of trust, it's duty. That's not an answer. It's the only one that matters, she said quietly. The transport glided to a halt before massive gates of living metal etched with sigils that pulsed faintly like veins beneath skin. Beyond them rose the royal palace, a structure that seemed grown rather than built. Its towers spiraled into the violet nightlight, flowing through them like liquid starlight. Riker let out a low whistle. You guys sure know how to make an impression. Lyria's jaw tightened. Just remember, when you stand before the Queen, everything you say and do will be recorded in memory. The palace itself is alive. Comforting, he said dryly. Two guards approached, tall armored Theasians with energy staves that hummed like restrained thunder. They scanned him with glowing devices, then nodded for them to proceed. As they crossed the threshold, the gates closed behind them with a sound like a heartbeat sealing shut. The corridors beyond were lined with flowing metallic veins shifting gently as if breathing. Riker could feel a subtle vibration beneath his feet, like being inside a creature too vast to comprehend. Then Lyria stopped suddenly and turned to him, her eyes serious. You'll need to remove your shirt. Riker blinked. I'm sorry, what? The Queen's attendants will require proof of your physical identity, she said quickly, but there was something strained in her tone. It's part of the ritual. Part of what ritual? She hesitated just long enough for his pulse to spike. Proof of loyalty. He stared at her, half expecting her to smirk. She didn't. Is this a Theasian custom I should have read the memo on? In a manner of speaking, she said, avoiding his gaze. Please, Riker, trust me on this. He wanted to laugh, but her eyes were too serious for that. Against his better judgment, he complied, peeling off his jacket and undershirt. The cool air brushed over his scarred, battle-hardened torso. The two guards didn't blink, but he could feel their stares, analytical, assessing. Lyria stepped closer, her voice low enough only he could hear. Our Queen demands a proof of loyalty, she said, her breath brushing his ear. Only the welcoming ritual can convince her. He froze. The what now? The ritual, she repeated, meeting his eyes. A sacred Theasian tradition. Physical proof of alliance, a merging of trust. Riker's mind raced. You mean? Yes, she said simply. And if you refuse, we walk away empty-handed. The Krell get the weapon. Billions die. He took a long, slow breath. He'd faced assassins, void storms, and orbital bombardments, but this was new. Fine, he muttered, grabbing his shirt again. Let's get this over with. When do I meet her? Lyria's eyes flickered with something he couldn't name. Now the Queen waits. As they walked through the final corridor, Riker felt the walls shift subtly as if sensing him. His heartbeat matched the faint pulse in the floor. When the great doors ahead began to open, he caught a glimpse of the room beyond, a chamber of liquid metal and living stars. And upon a dais at its center, bathed in ethereal light, sat Queen Alara, ruler of Thalos, cloaked in radiance and danger alike. Riker exhaled slowly. Here we go, he murmured. Remember, Lyria whispered, one wrong move and this planet won't forgive you. He straightened his shoulders, jaw set, eyes steady. For humanity, for the mission. And maybe, just maybe, for her. The chamber glowed like the inside of a star. Riker had seen palaces before, marble cathedrals, crystalline halls, orbiting citadels made of pure alloy, but nothing like this. The very air in this room seemed alive, humming faintly as if resonating with the Queen's presence. The walls rippled like liquid silver, reflecting endless constellations across their mirrored curves. And at the center, reclining on a raised dais framed by radiant light, was Queen Alara. Her emerald skin shimmered with a faint inner glow, and her silvery hair cascaded down like molten starlight. She wasn't wearing armor like Lyria, but something far more dangerous, a gown woven of light itself, shifting colors with her every breath. When she rose, every movement was fluid, deliberate, almost predatory. Commander Riker Blackwell, she said, her voice like the sound of wind over glass. Approach. Her tone was calm, but there was no mistaking the command beneath it, a gravitational pull that was equal parts authority and allure. Riker stepped forward, bare-chested, under the alien lights. Every instinct screamed that this was a trap, yet every rational thought whispered that retreat was impossible. Your Majesty? He greeted, bowing slightly enough to show respect, not subservience. You are uncomfortable, the Queen observed with a smile. Understandable. Few humans have stood in my presence. With all due respect, ma'am, he said, keeping his voice steady, this isn't exactly standard diplomatic procedure where I come from. Her laughter was soft, crystalline. Oh, Commander, what makes you think this is diplomacy? That laugh, melodic and cruel in equal measure, echoed through the chamber, and Riker realized how silent everything else was. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. The Asians believe words are easy, the Queen continued, circling him slowly. Promises are wind, and treaties are paper. But the body never lies. Riker tracked her movement without turning his head. Her presence was magnetic. Every step she took seemed calculated to test him. What truth are you looking for, Your Majesty, he asked. The truth, she said, simply coming to a halt before him, of whether you can be trusted with knowledge that could destroy worlds. Her golden-flecked eyes studied him, searching for weakness. Riker stood still. That's a lot to determine from one meeting. Is it? She reached out her hand, hovering just above his chest, not touching, but close enough that he could feel warmth radiating from her palm. Humans are fascinating creatures, she murmured. So fragile in form, yet so violent in nature. You conquer, you consume, you survive. But can you belong? The question hung in the air like a challenge. I'm not here to belong, Riker said evenly. I'm here to prevent a war. Prevention is a matter of perspective, the Queen replied. To one empire, it's mercy. To another, it's conquest delayed. Riker could feel the weight of her gaze pressing into him, not just examining, but penetrating. It felt like she was reading his thoughts. Then abruptly she turned away. Lyria speaks highly of you, she said over her shoulder. She claims you're a man of principle, loyal, predictable. Riker caught the faintest smile curve her lips. I've been accused of worse. Indeed, Alara murmured, but loyalty is a malleable thing. One can claim it, yet not feel it. She gestured gracefully toward a low table at the side of the dais. 2 glasses of luminescent blue liquid shimmered there, glowing faintly in the low light. Drink, she commanded. Riker hesitated. What's in it? Truth, she said simply. He sighed. That's not the reassuring answer I was hoping for. You came here to prove loyalty, the Queen said. Do so. He took the glass. The liquid smelled like ozone and fruit. He drank. It burned not painfully, but strangely like electricity running through the bloodstream. His vision flickered, his heartbeat syncing with the soft hum of the chamber. The Queen's eyes glowed brighter. Good. Now the ritual can begin. Ritual. Did your companion not warn you? She mentioned something about physical proof, Riker admitted. Ah, Alara said, circling him again. She simplified it. Understandable. The welcoming rite is not mere physicality, Commander. It is an exchange, a merging of essence. In it, lies are stripped away, intentions laid bare. He felt the hum in the air deepen, resonating in his chest. So you're saying, I will see what you are, she whispered, completely. She reached out again, and this time her fingers touched his chest. A shock like lightning flared between them, not pain, but an overwhelming sense of exposure. Images flooded Riker's mind, battlefields, blood comrades lost in fire, Earth's blue oceans, and then Lyria. Lyria's face illuminated by starlight, whispering his name. The Queen's eyes narrowed. Ah, she breathed. So that's what drives you. He gritted his teeth. Stay out of my head. I am your head right now, she said, and her tone was almost gentle. But do not fear, Commander. The truth does not shame us, it reveals us. The visions twisted again. Now he saw dark future cities burning, the coalition fleet falling apart, and something vast, mechanical, alive in the void, devouring stars. When he spoke, his voice was hoarse. What is that? The consequence of failure, the Queen said quietly. The Aegis was not built for war, but for defense against the void scourge. But its energy is unstable. In the wrong hands, it will consume reality itself. The visions faded, leaving him gasping, trembling slightly. The Queen stepped closer, her expression unreadable. Now you understand why I must be certain. Certain of what? Of your alignment. Her hand lingered on his chest a moment longer, then she withdrew, leaving behind a faint mark, a golden sigil that pulsed once before fading. Riker exhaled shakily. So, did I pass? The Queen tilted her head, her silver hair flowing like light. You are conflicted, she said, but honest. And that, Commander, is rare. She turned toward the dais again, pouring herself another drink. Our archives will open to you with my authorization. That's it, for now. She glanced over her shoulder, her gaze sharp once more. But do not mistake access for acceptance. You have proven your will. You have not yet proven your loyalty. Before he could respond, the great doors opened, and Lyria entered the chamber. Her posture was rigid, her expression calm, but her eyes flicked to Riker's bare chest and the faint golden mark glowing there. For the briefest instant, emotion cracked through her composure, something between jealousy and fear. "Your Majesty," she said, bowing. The commander's performance was satisfactory. Alara smiled faintly. "More than satisfactory. He is intriguing." Lyria's jaw tightened. "Then we have your permission to proceed with the mission." "You have my coordinates," Alara said. "Whether you succeed will depend on your unity." She looked between them, a glimmer of amusement in her golden eyes. The bond between human and Theasian must be tested further. Only when you move as one will the archives reveal their true depths. Riker frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You will discover soon enough." She raised her hand. A crystal-like device materialized from thin air floating toward him. Riker caught it instinctively. It was warm to the touch, pulsing with faint energy like a living map. "Those coordinates will lead you to the Scarlet Nebula," the Queen said, "where the archives rest and where your courage will be measured." Lyria bowed again. "We will not fail you, my Queen. See that you don't." As they turned to leave, the Queen called after them, her tone deceptively casual. "Oh, Commander." Riker paused. "When the time comes, you will face a choice," she said, "between duty and something far greater. Choose well." He met her gaze unflinching. "I always do." The Queen smiled. "That's what worries me." Outside the throne chamber, Lyria walked in silence. Her movements were too controlled, her breathing too steady. "Something on your mind?" Riker asked. "You shouldn't have let her touch you." He smirked. "Would you rather have done the honors?" She glared at him, but there was heat behind her anger. "You don't understand. The ritual creates a link. She can feel you now, sense your thoughts, your emotions." "That's creepy." "It's the Asian," Lyria snapped. "And it means you're bound to her, Commander, whether you like it or not." He looked at her, his tone softening. "Then we'd better make sure it was worth it." Her steps faltered slightly, and for a heartbeat their eyes met. Something flickered there, longing fear, something unspoken and dangerous. Then she looked away. "The coordinates lead deep into Krell territory. We'll need to depart at first light." "Fine," he said, "but next time you do the ritual." She didn't answer, but the faint flush rising on her green skin was answer enough. The corridors of the royal palace seemed to shift as Riker and Lyria walked side by side, not in a physical sense, but in the subtle way perception bent around alien grandeur. The walls pulsed with veins of golden light, echoing faintly with every step they took. It felt like walking through the body of a sleeping god. Neither spoke, not because there was nothing to say, but because the air between them was too heavy with unspoken things. When they reached the outer gates again, the cool night of Thalos washed over them like a breath of freedom. But even the humid air couldn't erase the mark, glowing faintly across Riker's chest. "What did she do to you?" Lyria finally asked, her voice low, almost trembling. Riker tugged his jacket over his shoulders. "I'm still figuring that out." "She marked you," Lyria pressed. "That sigil, it's not just a symbol, it's a resonance key. You're tied to her energy signature now. That's a polite way of saying I'm haunted. She'll see what you see, feel what you feel." The bond fades with distance, but not immediately. Her voice faltered for a moment. "She's inside your mind, Riker." He didn't answer right away. He just looked up at the sky above the city, a canvas of violet clouds and twin moons that shimmered like eyes. "Then let her watch," he muttered. "Maybe she'll learn something about humanity." But Lyria didn't laugh. "You shouldn't joke about that. The Queen's curiosity isn't human curiosity." "Yeah," he said quietly. "I'm starting to notice." They left Meridia before dawn. The transport glided silently through the pre-dawn mist, rising higher until the city shrank into a swirl of lights below. Ahead, the Queen's coordinates shimmered on the console, leading them to a restricted sector near the edge of the planetary shield. The palace had granted them a military-grade skimmer, sleek and fast, but the atmosphere between them was anything but smooth. Lyria sat in silence, her hands steady on the controls. Her reflection in the cockpit glass was pale green and unreadable. The mark on Riker's chest glowed faintly beneath his uniform, a reminder that the Queen's test wasn't over. He leaned back, watching her. "You knew about this ritual before we got here." She didn't deny it. "So why didn't you warn me?" Her hands tightened around the control grips. "Would you have come if I did?" He thought about it. "Probably not." "Exactly." Her tone was sharp, but her eyes betrayed something else, guilt, maybe even sorrow. "The Queen doesn't trust easily. To her, loyalty isn't proven through words or ranks. It's something deeper. You mean physical? I mean existential, Lyria snapped. The Theasians believe that when two beings share energy, their intentions are revealed. She wanted to feel your loyalty. That's one hell of a job interview. It's more than that. She glanced at him, her gaze softening. Alara has ruled for centuries. She's seen wars, betrayals, entire alliances crumble. When she looks at you, she's not just seeing a man, she's seeing the species that might change the balance of the galaxy. He looked away. No pressure then. An hour later, the transport descended toward a vast crater rimmed with black crystalline structures. The Queen's coordinates pulsed brighter as they approached the center. There, nestled in the heart of the crater, stood a temple-like structure, half ruin, half machine, glowing with the same ethereal gold as the mark on Riker's chest. Lyria frowned. This isn't just a shrine, it's one of the old residence chambers. Meaning this is where the Queen tests those who would serve her. Great, Riker muttered. I always wanted to take an alien loyalty exam. They disembarked. The ground beneath them was warm, humming faintly. Strange patterns were etched into the obsidian floor, circular runes that seemed to move underfoot, rearranging as if alive. The temple doors opened on their own. Inside, the air shimmered with energy. The walls were alive with streams of light flowing upward into a vast central dome. At the center stood a crystal monolith, suspended in midair, rotating slowly, radiating soft pulses of light that matched the beat of Riker's heart. She's waiting, Lyria said quietly. Riker turned. She's here. Lyria nodded toward the monolith. Not physically. The Queen manifests through the resonance field. You'll see. Before he could ask how the air thickened, the temperature dropped, the light dimmed, and then Queen Alara appeared, her form coalescing from golden mist. She looked exactly as she had in the throne room, only more luminous, less human. Her voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere at once. Commander Blackwell, she said, you came. I didn't have much of a choice, he replied. There is always a choice, she countered, and every choice reveals the truth of a man. Her eyes flared brighter. Are you ready? He glanced at Lyria. She met his gaze and nodded once. I'll be here. Riker stepped forward. Let's get this over with. The ritual began with light. The monolith pulsed, casting concentric waves through the air. They struck Riker like invisible ripples, warm, then cold, then blinding. His breath hitched. The floor beneath him dissolved into liquid metal, and suddenly he was falling. Not through space, through memory. He saw Earth oceans rain the smell of gunmetal and smoke. His father's voice shouting orders on a battlefield. The screams of soldiers burning under Krell fire. The smell of ozone and blood. The guilt of every man he'd lost. Stop it, he gasped. Face it, Alara's voice whispered. Truth hides in pain. The memory shifted. He saw his own reflection, cold, weary, unrecognizable. Then Lyria appeared beside him, her armor cracked eyes wide with trust and fear. 1,000 possible futures bloomed and died before him, her body fading in one, holding a child in another. Why are you showing me this? He demanded. To measure your soul, the Queen said, to see what you value most. I value life. Who's she pressed? He hesitated, and that hesitation was enough. The scene shattered like glass, and suddenly he was standing back in the chamber, gasping, drenched in sweat. The golden light around him pulsed violently, reacting to his emotions. The Queen's image drifted closer. You care too much, she murmured. That is both your greatest strength and your greatest weakness. I'll take my chances, he said, voice hoarse. You already have, she replied softly. You've chosen your ally, even if you don't realize it. Her eyes flicked toward Lyria, who stood rigid at the edge of the chamber, trembling slightly. Riker frowned. What do you mean? The ritual doesn't just reveal you, Alara said. It reveals connection, and yours is already formed. The chamber brightened until Riker had to shield his eyes. The light coalesced between them, a filament of energy linking his chest to Lyria's, the mark on his skin glowing in perfect sync with hers. Lyria gasped, clutching her abdomen as if struck. What is this? Proof, said the Queen, her voice resonant. Of trust, of union, of shared destiny. Riker staggered forward. You linked us without consent. Consent is irrelevant, Alara said, her tone both cold and amused. Fate has already chosen. The link flared again, sending waves of sensation between them. Thoughts, feelings, flashes of memory, not their own. Riker felt her fear, her pride, her pain. She felt his doubt, his guilt, his resolve. It was overwhelming, intoxicating, terrifying. Then as suddenly as it began, the light vanished. Riker fell to his knees, breathing hard. The chamber was still, again the Queen's projection flickering faintly. "The test is complete," she said. "You are bound. When you reach the Scarlet Nebula, the archives will recognize you both as one. Fail, and both shall fall." Riker forced himself to his feet. "You could have just asked nicely." The Queen smiled faintly. "And would you have said yes?" He had no answer. Alara's image began to fade, her final words echoing in the golden air. "Remember, Commander, what begins as duty often ends as destiny." Silence filled the chamber once more. Lyria knelt beside him, eyes wide, voice shaking. "Are you okay?" He nodded slowly. "Define okay." She laughed softly, a sound that was half relief, half disbelief. "You're impossible." "Yeah," he said, managing a faint grin. "That's why they send me to talk to space queens." Her expression softened. She wasn't lying. "The link, it's real. I can feel you." He met her gaze. "Then maybe it goes both ways." For a heartbeat, neither moved. The glow between them pulsed once more, faint but alive. Whatever this was, it was more than a mission now. Something ancient, powerful, and terrifying had bound them together. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he swore he could still hear the Queen's laughter. The journey back to their quarters was silent. Not the comfortable silence of understanding, but the strained kind that fills the air when two people are holding too much back. The only sound was the low hum of the hover transport slicing through Thalos's humid night. Outside, the megacity pulsed like a living circuit towers of metal and glass reflecting the violet glow of distant moons. Riker stared out the window, jaw tight. His reflection stared back, haunted, marked half-shadowed by alien light. The golden sigil the Queen had burned into his chest still pulsed, faintly synced to a rhythm that wasn't his own. Across from him, Lyria sat rigid, her eyes fixed on nothing. Her armor caught the dim light, each plate glinting like a mirror. But her face was a storm of emotions. Frustration, shame, something else she refused to name. "You haven't said a word," Riker finally muttered. "There's nothing to say." "Bullshit." Her gaze snapped to him, green eyes blazing. "You think this is a joke? You let her inside your mind. You let her brand you." "She didn't exactly ask for permission," he shot back. "And I didn't have much of a choice." "There's always a choice." "Yeah, you would have told her no." Lyria opened her mouth and closed it again. Her silence said enough. He sighed, leaning back. "You're mad because she touched me." "That's not." She stopped biting the words off before they escaped. "This isn't about jealousy." He arched a brow. "Didn't say it was." Her hands clenched into fists. "The ritual isn't just symbolic, Riker. The Queen connected you to her energy. You're part of her network now. You think she did that for fun? No, she's using you." He met her gaze, unflinching. "Then she'll get disappointed real quick." For a long moment, they just stared at each other, two soldiers from different worlds, both stubborn enough to die for what they believed in, both too proud to admit what else was burning between them. Finally, Lyria looked away. "The archives open at dawn. We'll leave as soon as possible." "Fine by me." The rest of the ride was quiet. Their quarters were dimly lit, Spartan metallic walls, scattered equipment, the faint smell of plasma coolant. Lyria moved around with mechanical precision, checking weapons, recalibrating scanners, running through every protocol twice. She always did that when she didn't want to feel. Riker leaned against the table, watching her. "You're overcompensating." "Preparation isn't overcompensation. Depends what you're preparing for." She ignored him. But when he spoke again, his voice was quieter. "The Queen said something before we left." Lyria froze. What did she say? "That what begins as duty often ends as destiny." Her shoulders stiffened. That sounds like something she'd say. "She also said, we're connected, you and I. That the ritual revealed it." Lyria turned slowly. "She said that." He nodded. Said it wasn't her doing, just confirmation. For the first time that night, uncertainty flickered across her face. "She's lying." "Maybe," Riker said. "But when she linked us, I saw things. Your memories. Your pain." Her breath caught. "You saw your planet burning. Your father. The day you swore allegiance to her." Lyria's expression cracked, and for a heartbeat, Riker glimpsed the truth beneath the soldier's mask, the grief, the loyalty twisted by necessity. She looked away sharply. "You had no right." "Didn't ask for it," he said softly. "But I'm not sorry I saw it." Her voice trembled despite her best effort. "Then you know why I can't fail her. And you know why I can't let her own me." That stopped her cold. The air between them hummed with tension, electric, magnetic, inevitable. She doesn't own you, Lyria said finally, but it sounded like she was trying to convince herself. Riker stepped closer. Then why do you sound like you're warning me? Lyria met his eyes. For the first time, she looked less like a soldier and more like a woman torn between loyalty and longing. Because the last human who stood before her didn't walk away, she whispered. Riker froze. There was another. Lyria nodded slowly. Years ago, he came here as an envoy. Smart, brave. She tested him too. When it was over, he vanished. The Queen said he couldn't bear the truth she revealed. And you believed her. I had to. Riker's gaze softened. No, you wanted to. That hit deeper than any weapon. She turned away, breathing unsteady. You should rest. We leave in 6 hours. He hesitated, then stepped closer, close enough that she could feel his warmth at her back. Rest can wait. She didn't move. Riker, you said you can feel me. Through the link. A pause, then quietly, yes. Then you know what I'm feeling right now. He could see her trembling, slightly. This isn't right. Nothing about this mission is right, he said, his voice low, magnetic. But it's real. Lyria turned, and whatever restraint she had left broke. She reached for him, and he met her halfway. The kiss was urgent, desperate, as if trying to erase everything else, the war, the laws, the mark on his chest. When they broke apart, breathless, she whispered, I told myself I'd never. He silenced her with another kiss. Then stop telling yourself. The armor between them clattered to the floor piece by piece. The world outside vanished. There was only heat, the pulse of alien light through the window, and the shared rhythm of two beings finding each other, not out of peace, but survival. What followed wasn't gentle, it was honest. Two soldiers shedding their burdens for a moment of truth. Hours later, the silence returned, but this time it wasn't cold. The 3 moons of Thalos shone through the narrow window, painting the room in silver light. Lyria lay against him, her breathing slow, her green skin glowing faintly in the pale hue. Riker traced lazy circles across her shoulder, where faint markings shimmered like bioluminescent tattoos. The room smelled of ozone and something sweeter, alien but strangely familiar. The Queen knew this would happen, Lyria murmured. Riker opened one eye. Yes, she turned to look at him. She said the bond would reveal itself. That true loyalty is born of shared essence. Riker frowned. You think she planned this? She plans everything. He sighed. Then maybe we gave her what she wanted. Maybe, Lyria said softly, but she won't get what she expects. They fell silent again. For a while, the only sound was the soft hum of the palace's distant energy grid and their synced breathing. Then Lyria stirred, suddenly pressing a hand to her abdomen. That's strange. Riker sat up. What is it feeling? Like a pulse. From the mark. No, she frowned. Inside me. Her expression shifted from confusion to alarm. She sat up, scanning herself with the wrist device embedded in her armor plate. The readings flickered across the projection, her vitals energy, resonance, metabolic rate. Then the screen flashed red. Riker leaned forward. What is it? Lyria's voice was barely a whisper. Impossible. What? Her eyes met his, wide and unsteady. The scanner says, I'm pregnant. For a second, Riker thought he'd misheard. That's not possible. It's been hours. The Asian biology doesn't work like human biology, she said. Voice shaking. Conception requires multiple alignments, hormonal, energetic, emotional. But this shouldn't happen. Not from one night. Riker rubbed his face. Either that scanner's broken or the ritual did this, Lyria finished. The realization hit them both at once. The Queen's energy, the link, the shared resonance, it hadn't just bonded them. It had fused them on a biological level. Riker exhaled slowly, his soldier's composure cracking just enough to show the storm beneath. What does this mean? Lyria looked down at the faint golden glow now radiating softly through her abdomen. It means the Queen's plan worked better than she imagined. Her voice trembled. And it means we don't have a mission anymore, Riker. We have a legacy. He met her gaze, no longer commander and operative, but man and woman standing on the edge of something terrifying and sacred. Then he said what both of them were thinking. Whatever happens next, we face it together. Lyria nodded slowly. Her hand found his. Together she whispered. Outside, the moons drifted behind the clouds, and for the first time since the mission began, Thalos slept. But deep within the palace, far above their quarters, Queen Alara stood before her starlit window watching. A faint smile touched her lips as the same golden light shimmered across her fingertips. Perfect, she whispered. The seed has taken root. The morning after felt too quiet. Riker awoke to filtered sunlight cutting through the blinds like blades. For one weightless second, he almost forgot where he was until he saw the faint golden shimmer tracing across Lyria's abdomen. Reality slammed back the Queen's ritual, the bond, the impossible pregnancy. He sat up. Any change? Lyria's voice was steady but hollow. No, but the readings keep rising. Whatever's growing inside me, it's accelerating. Riker reached for her wrist console. The holographic display flickered cell division off the chart's neural activity, forming far too fast. You're not just pregnant, he said slowly. You're evolving. She met his eyes, then we better find out why. Within the hour, they were airborne, their small scout ship, the Nomad, cutting through Thalos' upper atmosphere toward orbit. Behind them, the planet shrank to a swirl of greens and violets. Ahead stretched the blood-red clouds of the Scarlet Nebula. Coordinates locked, Lyria said, strapping in. The Queen's data points straight into Krell territory. Of course it does, Riker muttered. Wouldn't be a proper suicide mission otherwise. The engines roared as the ship pierced the first wisps of crimson gas. Radiation alarms blinked amber. Outside, the nebula churned like a living storm. Sensors flickered uselessly. Navigation's blind, Riker said. Then we fly old school, Lyria replied. Her hands moved across the manual controls, graceful even under pressure. For an hour, they flew in uneasy silence. The nebula's glow painted everything blood red. Lyria's skin gleamed like polished jade, her silver hair haloed in the cockpit's light. She kept one hand on the controls, the other pressed absently to her abdomen, feeling the strange rhythm pulsing beneath. Riker noticed. How are you feeling? Stronger, she admitted almost guiltily. Every hour, it's as if the child is feeding me energy. That shouldn't be possible. Nothing about this is possible, he said. But here we are. She gave him a small, sad smile. You humans call that optimism. He smiled back. We call it denial. The moment almost felt normal until the radar screamed. Multiple signatures blinked onto the screen. Krell patrols, Lyria said sharply, closing fast. Time to make them work for it. Riker threw the Nomad into a dive. Plasma fire ripped through the nebula around them, painting streaks of light through the fog. The small ship bucked and rolled. The hull vibrated with every near miss. Shields at 60%, Lyria shouted. Riker gritted his teeth. Not losing this baby to a bunch of overgrown bugs. She arched an eyebrow even as she braced herself. Which baby? Either he said and banked hard left. A blast grazed their port side. System screamed, the cabin filled with the acrid scent of burnt circuitry. We're hit. Can you stabilize? I can crash in a straight line, Riker growled. Through the static, a planet appeared ahead, a blue-green sphere, half hidden by nebula dust. There, Lyria checked the readouts. Atmosphere's breathable, terrain unknown. Perfect landing conditions. The Nomad plunged toward the planet, trailing fire. The impact came like a thunderclap. Branches tore at the hull as they plowed through the forest canopy. Metal shrieked, dirt sprayed, and then silence broken only by the hiss of dying engines. Riker coughed through the smoke. Report. Alive, Lyria said, unstrapping herself. She winced but stood. The kid. She scanned herself with a shaky hand. A moment later, relief softened her features. Stable. Both of us. Riker exhaled. Then let's move before the Krell decide to visit. They forced open the hatch. Outside stretched a clearing bathed in violet light. Towering trees with purple leaves swayed above their trunks, glimmering faintly as if infused with metal. The air was thick, sweet, and alive. Lyria took a cautious breath. Oxygen levels safe. Trace minerals. Strange. Strange how resonant, she said, touching the soil. The ground's humming with energy. Riker activated his wrist scanner. No signs of civilization, but wait. He frowned at the display. Massive power readings 12 kilometers north. That matches the Queen's coordinates. They exchanged a look. The archives, they said together. They packed essentials weapons, medkits, a portable scanner, and set out through the alien forest. The light dimmed as the canopy thickened, filtering sunlight into ribbons of violet and gold. Every step hummed underfoot. The planet felt alive, whispering in frequencies just below hearing. An hour and Lyria stopped abruptly. Riker. He turned. What is it? She pressed a hand to her abdomen. A soft golden glow seeped through her armor, pulsing in time with her heartbeat. Hell, Riker murmured. It's getting brighter. I can feel something calling, she said, eyes wide. In that direction. She pointed north the same direction as the energy readings. Then let's answer. They moved faster, guided by instinct, and the strange tug emanating from within her. But they weren't alone. A distant howl split the air, mechanical guttural. Riker froze. Tell me that's not what I think it is. Krell hounds, Lyria said grimly. Cybernetic trackers. They must have followed the wreck. Great. Dog-sized nightmares, my favorite. They ran. Through trees, across glowing roots, their boots thudding in rhythm with the forest pulse. The howls grew louder, closer. Riker scanned the area desperately. We need to mask our trail. Here! Lyria crushed a nearby orange pod. It burst, releasing a pungent oil that stung the nose. This will block their sensors. He smeared it across his armor. Smells like burned engine grease. Better than smelling like dinner. The first hound appeared minutes later, a hulking beast of metal and flesh, its eyes glowing crimson jaws buzzing with energy blades. It lunged. Riker fired his pulse rifle. The bolt slammed into its shoulder, sending it sprawling. But another emerged behind, then another. Too many. Keep moving. They sprinted uphill toward a ridge. A blast grazed Riker's arm, searing pain across his bicep. He bit back a curse, turned, and emptied a full charge into the nearest hound's chest. The creature exploded in a shower of sparks. Lyria cried out, stumbling, as another beam sliced past. Riker grabbed her, hauling her up. You good? She nodded, panting. Just grazed, wait. The glow from her abdomen surged blinding bright. The hounds froze mid-charge. Their eyes flickered, then dimmed. One by one, they backed away, whining in confusion before retreating into the trees. What the hell was that? Riker demanded. I think the child protected us, she said, astonished. He stared at her, breathing hard. Remind me to send that kid a thank you card. She almost smiled. Let's move before they regroup. By nightfall, they reached the edge of a rocky plateau. From here, the forest fell away to reveal a valley dominated by a massive structure, half buried in the mountain, a fusion of temple and fortress, gleaming faintly beneath the nebula's light. Lyria's eyes widened. The archives. They descended carefully. As they drew near, the glow from her abdomen intensified, syncing perfectly with the pulses of light running along the structure's surface, as if the building itself were breathing in time with her. It's responding to you, Riker said. Or to him, she murmured, hand on her stomach. They reached a smooth triangular doorway carved with alien symbols. No visible control panels, no seams. How do we open it? Riker asked. As if in answer, the symbols began to glow one by one, matching the rhythm of Lyria's pulse. The air vibrated. Then with a deep, resonant hum, the door split open. Riker let out a low whistle. Guess that's a yes. They stepped inside. The interior was immense, lit by veins of gold and silver that ran like neural circuits across the walls. The air felt dense, charged. Every sound echoed endlessly. This place is alive, Riker whispered. It's ancient Theasian tech biosynthetic construction, Lyria said, awe in her voice. Half machine, half organism. They walked down a spiraling corridor toward a central chamber. But before they could explore further, the distant rumble of engines vibrated through the floor. Riker cursed. They found us. Outside, Krell ships were descending through the atmosphere, searchlights cutting through the clouds. They're landing troops, Lyria said, scanning the feed from her wrist device. Dozens of them. Riker checked his rifle. Then we don't have long. A blast rocked the mountain dust raining from the ceiling. Inside, Riker shouted. Now, they sprinted through the corridor as the doors sealed behind them. The last thing Riker saw before it closed was a Krell gunship touching down in the clearing. Inside, lights flickered back to life, guiding them deeper. Lyria's glow dimmed as they entered the final chamber, a vast circular hall with a raised platform at its center. Above, a projection of the galaxy shimmered countless stars orbiting a single point of light. At the center stood a console of smooth metal waiting. This is it, Lyria breathed. The control core of the stellar Aegis. Riker stepped closer. Then let's make sure it doesn't end the universe. Before they could act, a voice resonated through the hall, deep, ancient, neither male nor female. Greetings, Seedbearer. You have arrived as foretold. Both froze. A holographic figure appeared, tall, luminous, with features that shifted between species. Who are you? Riker demanded. I am the Guardian, it said. Caretaker of the Aegis. You carry within you the key. Its gaze turned to Lyria's abdomen. The child, she whispered. Yes. The union of human and Theasian completes the sequence. The weapon may now awaken. Riker shook his head. Weapon, we're not here to activate it. We're here to make sure no one ever can. That is impossible, the Guardian said. The Aegis is bound to the life of this world. To destroy it is to end the planet itself. The floor trembled, explosions from above. The Krell had breached the outer levels. Options, Riker demanded. The Guardian's voice was calm. Activate the Aegis and it will protect you, but it will draw power from all living things connected to it, including your unborn child. Lyria's blood ran cold. You mean temporary depletion, the Guardian said, but it will accelerate development beyond prediction. Another blast. The walls cracked. Krell's soldiers poured in insectoid forms gleaming under the gold light. Riker grabbed Lyria's hand. We don't have time. Her eyes met his. Fear warred with determination. If we don't stop them, billions die. He nodded once. Then we do this together. They placed their hands on the console. Light erupted. Energy surged through them, up their arms, through their bodies. Lyria gasped, the glow from her abdomen flaring blinding white. Riker felt everything, her heartbeat, the child's pulse, the world's own rhythm merging into one. The Guardian's voice thundered, stellar Aegis activating, targeting hostile vessels. Above, the planet's crust split open, releasing lances of energy that shot skyward. The Krell fleet vanished in bursts of silent fire. The chamber filled with brilliance. Krell soldiers screamed as they were caught mid-charge, suspended in stasis. When the light faded, silence reigned. Lyria collapsed into Riker's arms, trembling. The baby. He scanned quickly, his eyes widened. You're 7 months along. Her hands flew to her stomach, now visibly rounded. It's true, I can feel him. Before either could speak again, the Guardian reappeared. The Aegis is active, but the connection must be maintained. The child, your son, must remain within this system to sustain the shield. Riker stared horrified. You're saying he's bound to this place? Yes, unless the burden is shared among many. The floor shook again, but this time not from battle, from footsteps. The grand doors opened, revealing Theasian royal guards, and behind them, radiant and calm, Queen Alara. Your Majesty, Lyria whispered, exhaustion and fury mingling. The Queen surveyed the frozen battlefield, the glowing console, the young couple at its heart. I see you've awakened my ancestors' legacy. You knew, Riker said, voice low. You planned this. Of course. Alara approached, her silver hair glimmering. For centuries, we guarded the Aegis, waiting for the one who could unite our blood with humanity's spark. You have fulfilled that prophecy. You used us, Lyria hissed. The Queen smiled gently. I guided you. Riker stepped protectively in front of Lyria. Our child isn't a key. He's a person. And thanks to him, Alara said, this galaxy still exists. The Guardian's light shifted. There is another path. The connection can be divided among many of compatible lineage. Alara gestured, and a dozen Theasians stepped forward, her kin volunteers. They will share the bond. Your child will be free. Lyria stared at her, tears glinting. Why would you do this? Because the next war will not be against the Krell, the Queen said quietly. The Void Scourge returns soon, and your son must live to lead us when it does. Silence fell. Riker looked to Lyria. Your call. She squeezed his hand. We consent. The volunteers formed a circle. The Guardian dissolved into beams of light, weaving through them. Energy arced toward Lyria, then spread outward, connecting every participant in a web of gold. The glow in her abdomen softened, steady and calm. The burden was shared. When it was done, she exhaled deeply. He's free, she whispered. I can feel it. Riker smiled faintly. Then let's take him home. Alara's gaze softened. Home is wherever destiny allows. But know this, what began in loyalty has become legend. Outside, the Aegis shimmered, a golden barrier stretching across the stars. A shield born from love's sacrifice in one impossible union. And somewhere within it, a child stirred, for the first time, half human, half Theasian, fully extraordinary. 3 months passed. The wars had quieted, the stars had steadied, and the name Blackwell had begun to move in whispers across the coalition. Some said he'd disappeared inside the Scarlet Nebula. Others claimed he had been executed by the Theasians for defiling their queen's decree. None of them knew the truth, that Commander Riker Blackwell was still alive deep within the royal city of Thalos, waiting for the moment that would define him. him. Forever. He stood now at the edge of a grand balcony overlooking the dawn. Meridia glowed beneath him, reborn after its brush with annihilation. The shield of the stellar Aegis shimmered faintly overhead, a protective veil visible only when the morning sun struck it at the right angle. For a man who had once lived for battle, Riker found peace an alien thing. The quiet unnerved him almost as much as war ever had. He ran a hand over the faint scar where the Queen's sigil had once burned on his chest. It was gone now, replaced by a tattoo of Lyria's choosing two intertwined spirals, one silver, one gold. Footsteps echoed behind him. He didn't need to turn to know who it was. "She's asking for you," said Queen Alara softly. Her voice still carried the weight of command, but in these months the sharpness had dulled. There was weariness behind her eyes, the price of leadership perhaps, or the quiet guilt of a chess master watching her pawns turn into people. Riker inclined his head. "How is she?" "Strong," the Queen said. "Resilient as humans tend to be. She's close." He nodded and followed her down the corridor. The royal palace was quieter these days, most of its guards reassigned to study the Aegis and maintain the distributed bond that kept the shield alive. The volunteers she had gathered still lived within its field, linked by threads of light that occasionally flickered beneath their skin. Each one carried a sliver of the burden that might otherwise have killed a child. They reached a private chamber simple by royal standards. The air smelled of sterile metal incense and the faint ozone hum of medical devices. Lyria lay on a low platform surrounded by translucent medical screens. Her skin glowed softly, her silver hair spread around her like spilled light. When she saw him, her smile was tired but radiant. "You're late." Fashionably, he replied, stepping closer. Her laugh was a breath. "Don't make me laugh right now or I'll throw you out." He took her hand, rough fingers closing around hers. "How's our little miracle?" "Impatient," she said, wincing as another contraction rippled through her. "Just like his father." The Queen watched from the side, her expression unreadable. "The doctors assure me everything is stable," she said. "The accelerated growth has normalized since the bond was shared. He will be born healthy." Riker nodded, his throat tight. "He'll be more than healthy. He'll be unique," Alara corrected. Lyria's breath quickened. "Then come here and see what unique looks like when he arrives." Moments later, the room filled with sound, a newborn's cry strong and clear as the strike of a bell. He was small but perfect. Skin pale green, like dawn light through leaves, hair a faint chestnut brown, with silver streaks and eyes that shimmered between blue and emerald, as though still deciding which world they belonged to. Lyria cradled him, tears slipping down her cheeks. "He's beautiful," she whispered. Riker stood beside her, unable to speak for a long moment. His hands that had once held rifles and detonators, trembled slightly as he touched his son's tiny fingers. "What should we call him?" he asked quietly. Lyria thought for a moment. "You choose, you're the storyteller." He smiled faintly. "Theon, it means hunter in an old Earth tongue." Alara, standing nearby, inclined her head. "A strong name, but he should bear his mother's people as well. Theron, after my ancestors, the first guardians of the Aegis." Lyria whispered it aloud. "Theon Theron Blackwell." Riker nodded. "A name for a child of two worlds." The Queen smiled genuinely this time. "May he grow wiser than all of us." Days became weeks. The city celebrated the survival of Thalos and the peace forged in the Scarlet Nebula. Statues rose not of soldiers or kings, but of unity human and Theasian hands joined beneath a shining sphere. The Aegis shield stabilized its energy web, pulsing gently across the sector. The Krell Dominion had retreated beyond the border, licking their wounds, and for once the stars were quiet. In the palace, quiet had its own rhythm. Riker learned to move differently, less like a soldier, more like a father. He spent hours with Theon in his arms, watching the baby's shifting eyes track the flicker of light through the window. The child's presence had a strange effect. Nearby machines hummed more steadily, lights burned cleaner, and even the Queen's plants bloomed faster. Lyria joked that he was already bending physics before he could walk. But sometimes late at night she would wake to find Riker standing by the window staring out at the glowing horizon. "Thinking about leaving?" she asked one night. He didn't look away. "Thinking about what happens when the next war comes." "You think there will be one?" He exhaled slowly. "There's always another war, but maybe not for him." She rose and came to stand beside him, slipping her hand into his. "Then we make sure he has something worth fighting for, not against." Riker smiled faintly. "You sound like a diplomat." "I've been studying," she said. "Admiral Voss approved our Joint Commission liaison to the Theasian Coalition. Officially, we'll oversee the Aegis project." He turned to her, surprised. "You're serious?" the Queen insisted. "She says humans are remarkably adaptable." Riker laughed softly. "She's not wrong." Months later, a quiet ceremony marked the reopening of the Interstellar Council. The hall was filled with leaders, envoys, and soldiers from a dozen worlds. At the center stood Queen Alara Lyria and Riker Theon nestled asleep in his mother's arms. When Alara addressed the assembly, her voice carried the weight of centuries. Once we demanded proof of loyalty, she said. We thought unity required submission. But loyalty born of fear fades. What lasts is trust and love. Her gaze shifted to Riker and Lyria. These two have given us both. Applause thundered through the hall. For Riker, it felt surreal to be the man who had once been ordered to destroy a weapon now standing beside the woman who had become its living key. He looked down at his son's face and saw something neither human nor Theasian but the best of both. And for the first time since the mission began, he believed that maybe the universe could learn to change. Later that night, after the celebrations ended, Riker stood again at the balcony overlooking the city. Theon slept in his arms, small and warm. The stars stretched endlessly above their light, refracted through the golden haze of the Aegis shield. He felt Lyria's presence behind him before she spoke. Still can't sleep, she teased. He smiled. Habit. She came closer, wrapping her arms around him from behind. He'll want stories when he's older, you know. Riker chuckled. Oh, I've got a few. Then start with how it began, she said softly. Before all this. He looked down at their son, who shifted slightly in eyes flickering open blue and green lights swirling like tiny galaxies. I'll tell him, Riker said quietly, how his mother and I met on a mission that was never supposed to happen. How a queen demanded proof of loyalty. How a ritual meant to test us gave us him. Lyria smiled against his shoulder. That's a good story. He turned, kissed her forehead. It's only the beginning. She reached up and traced the spirals on his chest, the mark of their bond, now faint but eternal. To the stars and back, she whispered. Riker looked at the horizon where the golden shield shimmered faintly, protecting the galaxy from the endless dark. To the stars and back, he echoed. And as the first light of dawn broke over Thalos, Commander Riker Blackwell, soldier lover, father, realized that maybe for once, humanity hadn't just survived, it had belonged. High above the guardian of the Aegis watched silently from the orbiting temple. The seed endures, it whispered to itself. Balance restored, for now. Beyond the shield, in the cold reaches of the void, something stirred, a faint echo of a voice older than stars. The first tremor of the next storm. But that was for another story. For now, the legend of Riker Blackwell, Lyria Voss, and their child, the bridge between species, lived on. Written in the stars, whispered across worlds, carried in every beam of the golden shield. Because in the end, the Queen had been right about one thing. What begins as duty often ends as destiny. And what began as proof of loyalty had become the proof that love, human, alien, or otherwise, could rewrite the fate of galaxies.